Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hash Rate. My guest today is Mog Machine of Hippius. Hello, Mog, and many things. But how you doing, Mog?
Hi, Mark. So this is my first time as Mog of Hippius, isn't it? But it's not my first time here. I'm going for the record. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, so thank you for coming on. So the reason I asked you on so quickly after your triumphant appearance on Revenue Search is because I was very impressed with what you came up with for Hippius. So I want to talk a little bit about Hippius, but I'm mostly this show. I think you've made a quantum leap forward in Alphanomics. Your word, Alphanomics, the design of the Alpha token. And from my perspective, I've been long wondering, like, what are Alpha tokens? Are they just meme coins for subnets? And in some cases they are, right? But I always felt like, it shouldn't be that way. It should have a more sophisticated design. And I think yours is the first subnet to come up with a design which directly ties the value of the Alpha token to the revenue and the usage and the success of the subnet. They are now joined at the hip. It's no longer, they're two different things maybe. So I want you to take us through what you've done and explain the Alphanomics, because I think it's absolutely brilliant. So Mog, how does this whole thing work?
Thank you. So let's take a step back and look at, obviously, the origin of these Alpha tokens and how they came to be in the very first place. The original design and the mechanism of detail is to allow essentially demand for a subnet to govern its emissions in the way that validators used to award emissions to subnets based on the value that they felt they were giving to the ecosystem. The network's ideology is it will be a natural market choice as to how valuable your subnet is. That works in a popularity contest, but the reality is that it's not validators with the good intentions of the ecosystem making these decisions anymore. It is investors, TAO holders, and the reality is that most investors are in it to make a profit. So what happens is, whilst you purchase Alpha for subnets you believe in, it's not necessarily tied to the value that you see in that subnet. It's tied to whether you think the value of that subnet will increase. Yes. Which obviously we see with purchase of Alpha tokens in subnets that have just changed hands, subnets that we've got no idea what they're doing. And then often good subnets we don't hold anymore because we feel, maybe that's got as far as it's going to keep making me money, so I'm off to go and find the next quick buck. And the reason behind this is that the Alpha token's value isn't many cases directly tied to the valuation of the subnet. Now, I've been going on about this for a little while, hoping that other subnets start to come up with mechanisms. There are some. I made a point of not specifically name checking people or other subnets when doing this particular talk and just keeping it to Hippius. There are other subnets trying to do this, but the other reality is, in order for this to really work, you do need to have a product that's being used, or the roadmap to a product that's being used, and your subnet needs to actually be generating value. So that's a controversial point. There are many subnets out there that may actually not be generating value.
When you say generating value, do you also mean generating revenue?
Producing a commodity that is valued. Generally, you would equate that to revenue. There may be instances where it's not equatable to revenue, but if there is competition, as in miners are competing to be on your network, if the miners are saying, yes, this is valuable enough that we're competing to do this, and we're trying really hard, that's normally a show of value. You can, this is a world of new business development. So sometimes there may be other external elements, partnerships, promises of implementation that may imply value. But the thing with BitTensor is you really have to start proving that very quickly. Unlike the traditional crypto market where you can just put out a bunch of partnership photos and then people go, yeah, this is amazing. And they're willing to tolerate that and bet on that for a year or two. BitTensor require proof and answers a lot quicker. So very good.
Yeah, let me actually interject something here because I'm going to name someone. So I'm really a big fan of Templar and what they're doing and the people behind it. That said, I don't know how it makes money, or at least it's not totally clear to me, right, that is going to be a revenue generating thing. Or if it is, maybe it's 2 years from now, right? Like I just don't know. It's not as clear as what you've done with Hippius here. It's not anywhere near it. So I don't know how to reconcile that because I feel bad about it because I love the project. I think it's enormously important, right? So yeah. So I just to give an example.
These are the I put the Templar in the category of the groundbreaking AI subnets. What we realize is once that if that works and it's doing what it should be doing, those in the know understand that is an incredibly valuable function. But for the normie who isn't going out there and training an AI model, it's very hard for us to say, oh, I understand the value of it. You hear statistics for how much did OpenAI spend to train GPT, how much did Anthropic spend to train Claude, but that's not a cost that you and me as a consumer have anything to do with. We understand how much we pay to use GPT per month or Claude per month, but we don't understand the infrastructure costs behind it. But there are those that, of course, understand that the ability to train more efficiently in a decentralized way is critical. So that's where Templar's value comes on. It's yes. Like buying shares in the lithium mine because you understand, 10 years ago, because you understand that lithium batteries in the future will be incredibly needed and valuable, but you're not quite sure now, and you're not really sure what people use lithium for or even what it looks like.
Yeah. It's decentralized colossus, right? Like it's just for those who don't know. So anyway,
but this is the advantage of the product subnets. I can name check if we go from the top, something like Shoots, top subnet. Why? We all use it. I pay for Shoots. I use Shoots. Liam, GPUs. Personally, I don't, but there are many, many miners and people that I deal with on a day-to-day basis that use it.
Yes.
So it's very easy to understand that and to understand their market, the competition, and how much of a slice of the pie of that market they need.
And there's revenue. All those things have revenue. So you can see money flowing through them, right?
This is interesting. You can see money flowing through. Where do you see that money flowing through? In a Twitter or Discord post by the...
yeah, that's true. That's true. We don't actually see it. So
Now, this is not the fault of the subnets. I'm not. This is why I didn't want to name subnets, because I'm not accusing anyone of doing anything shady. Yes. The reality is, unless it's on-chain revenue, but on-chain revenue is not recorded in BitTensor. It's just that we can say, hey, all transactions into this wallet were people paying for my subnet.
Yes.
Okay. But let's take that as fact, if we take that as fact. But again, it's not something that's completely immutable and provable. And then you have the fiat revenue on the side. And then you have subnet owners making choices as to what they burn, how they do. It's definitely a step in the right direction if you're able to make this revenue, but it's not 100% immutable. And the reason why it's not possible to do so is the BitTensor blockchain, its primary purpose, other than recording the flow of tau and alpha and where transactions, is recording the scoring mechanisms of BitTensor.
Yes.
The network is there, and this is why the network scales. And it's not hold on a minute, they're making huge amounts of inference. Will this bog down the? And it's a beginner question to BitTensor. How do you cope with someone making millions of inference queries? And to which
they're not on chain, dude.
That's not on chain. It's only us making sure we score the people who are providing that service that is on chain. So although it is possible, and it will, and I'm going to do it again. This is my secret mission. Name dropping a BitTensor improvement tenant that we put out. We do want to bring smart contracts to BitTensor, native substrate WASM smart contracts.
So not the EVM layer. Not like
the EVM layer. So you can do things like say, hey, miners, we want you to lock up some collateral. And if you don't perform on chain, we're slashing it on chain.
Okay, because you brought that up, I have to ask a question. So we haven't gotten to your design yet, but one of the facets of it is that you have to stake alpha tokens in order to mine. You do this by having a separate Hippius chain that you move things over to. But without that chain, there is no way to do that inside of the native BitTensor chain at the moment. And that's why you want the smart contract. Is that correct?
The bit is written, the PR and all the code is written. It's currently being reviewed. If you've seen the Nucleus team who deal with subtensor, their update yesterday or the day before said it's something they're reviewing in the next couple of weeks. They want to run end-to-end tests on it and make sure that it's 100% secure. But the Tau was actually the TauStats team that have written this for something that they're building. I know the Liam team are very interested in this. The Hippius team, of course, need it for they don't need it, but it's the optimum design for the bridge that I'm about to speak about. So it opens the door to some of what we're doing. But as you rightly say, Hippius is the only currently subnet with its own blockchain, and this goes back a little bit to how we got here. This was about this time last year that I was discussing with a TauStats team member was a TauStats team member, Dubs, who is the founder of Hippius and a bit of a decentralized storage geek, to say the least. And we were talking about how we might build a subnet like this and how it would really benefit from, and I had been pushing this narrative because I'd seen other people discussing it, having a blockchain within a subnet. Now, the problem at this time last year is the biggest concern was, hold on, a blockchain within a subnet, you're creating your own token, you're driving value away from BitTensor. We had a lot of examples of teams and projects that were coming in with their own secondary token, misaligned, trying to pull value away from, well, there was no alpha then, so away from Tau. Mm-hmm. And I felt that the technical merits of having your own blockchain within a subnet, if done properly, had to be explored. It had to be explored. Someone had to do it. Therefore, if the first person to do it did it right, and I had a lot of conversations with Const, with Jake, the founder, and I remember initially as people found out about this, they would say, oh, no, these guys are going to create their own token. They're going to drive value away. And thankfully, Const would leap in and say, no, they've been speaking to me about this for months and made sure that they're aligned. Because, of course, it is a popularity contest. If you do something that people see as driving value away from Tau, you won't get emissions, especially within an alpha.
Nobody likes a second
unless
token.
You make a really good Ponzi, but we're not encouraging anyone to do that.
But I've seen this so many times where not and outside of BitTensor too, where somebody makes one token, then they make another one, and then everybody loses faith in the team, and both tokens just crash and never come back. So that's an immutable law.
None of them have succeeded yet in doing so. But I'm going to stay away from other subnets, and let's talk about Hippius. So for me, the other advantage of the blockchain was you could have a much more detailed scoring mechanism. You could eliminate things like weight copying because you've just got much more data than was possible on the BitTensor blockchain. And whilst you could expand the BitTensor blockchain to do this, if you did it on the BitTensor blockchain for every single subnet, you would limit the growth of subnets because suddenly, and on also the development of the chain, because you would have different teams coming in and saying, hold on a minute, we need to add this palette, we need to add that, we need to add that. The BitTensor blockchain needs to be efficient and needs to work in the way that it does in order for it to be infinitely, but greatly expandable beyond 128 subnets. We thought beyond 1,024 subnets into the future. So it's important that this can be done, but it was also important that any blockchain that was within a subnet respected the rules of BitTensor. Yes. In the way that BitTensor is a cry out in acceptance to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's tokenomics, how Bitcoin did. Hippius blockchain is that to BitTensor. It's on substrate.
It's respectful. It's symmetrical. Yes,
exactly.
Please.
So I think that explains how we got a blockchain. We should probably have a look at the slides. You can see my screen, I believe.
I can. Yes, please show us the slides.
So this is all about the Hippius token mechanism. We call this the word, I did say this, and I realized I said a word that will probably be used quite often now, Alphanomics, the Alphanomics of Hippius. And what I want to first of all cover in this is what hAlpha is, or Hippius staking minor lockups, distributing revenue and how that generates value, the verification on chain, and I'll talk a little bit more about the upcoming developments that facilitates and the roadmap itself of Hippius, but I won't spend a lot of time on that because it's all about hAlpha. What is hAlpha? So first of all, what is alpha? Alpha is quite simply the DTAL token, the token of every subnet. Every subnet has its own token and its own token mechanism. Again, mirrors Bitcoin, 21 million, halving every X, Y, Z. And they are outputted to the participants of that subnet. And they are essentially a staked derivative of tau. What that means is in order to get any subnet token, you must first have tau and swap that tau into the subnet token. On tau stats and other trading apps, it is much more like a trade, like a Uniswap interface, in the same way that in order to, in the early days, in order to get an Ethereum L2 token, you needed ETH first. The gas for that was ETH.
Yes.
The only difference is L2 tokens are not staked ETH, whereas all subnet tokens are actually staked tau.
Let me try to dummy it down a little bit. So within BitTensor, there's the main tau token, which is sort of the big Bitcoin token. And then there's 128 subnets. Each one of those subnets also has its own token. And each one of those tokens is limited to 21 million. And they are emitted in the same way the Bitcoin and the main tau token is emitted. The big difference here is that to get the alpha, the subnet token, you have to stake tau. So basically, the entire mechanism is designed to continuously drive value back to the tau token from all subnets at all times. It's not a second token. It's actually a rehypothecated version of the first token. And that's very important to understand. We'll get into the details of it, but that's basically what's going on here.
I like the idea that some people say that, tau token is like the main fund token, the S&P 500, yes, whereas the subnet tokens are the individual companies within that. Holding tau has a much lesser, staking your tau has a lesser return than staking these subnet tokens. That's what's important to understand, and to understand why a subnet token is staked is that they generate a return. They generate, I'm going to call them dividends, because this is not a financial advice presentation. So I don't want to use words like staking rewards, APY, et cetera. We'll always use the word dividends. That's what we use in BitTensor to represent the funds that are paid to the holders and participants of a subnet, be it a validator or a miner or the subnet owner. And through validators, the stakers, yourself and I, with our token are paid. So that's the first important thing to understand, that within BitTensor, an alpha token has a yield. I have said that word. It has a yield. It receives dividends.
Yes.
So hAlpha is simply a one-to-one representation of the alpha token on the Hippius blockchain. And that was the most important thing. We didn't mint 1 million hAlpha, 21 million hAlpha, 1 billion hAlpha. Other than, I think, with the exception, and I shouldn't say this, but I'll be completely honest, I think there's about 100 test hAlpha that exist on the Hippius blockchain that we just magic out of thin air. So it's about $300. It's okay. Well, we'll be okay with this. In order for hAlpha to exist, it must be bridged over from alpha.
Okay, so let me repeat this. So basically, on the main BitTensor chain, there's the Hippius, I think it's subnet 75, subnet token. Yes. Yep. And what you do is you take it and you put it through a bridge, which is like a little Stargate, and it goes whoop, and it transports from the BitTensor chain over to the Hippius chain, where that alpha token is now called an hAlpha token, but it's the same thing. I'm lying a little bit, but basically that's conceptually what's going on here. And instead of making a second token on the Hippius chain, like the HIP token, you're like, no. We're just going to use the Hippius. We're going to use that transported Hippius token as our main token on the Hippius chain. So that we're not in this two token world. We're still using just one token for Hippius. Correct?
Correct. 100% correct. Right now, there are 2.36 million out of 21 million Hippius alpha tokens emitted into the BitTensor ecosystem. So that is the maximum we could ever have of this hAlpha, but it would require all of them to be bridged. And currently, So it's just a one-on-one representation. If you hold hAlpha, you can swap alpha into hAlpha and hAlpha back into alpha. There will never be more, other than the 100 we minted for testing, hAlpha than alpha. And I think we may actually burn those once we're happy with everything. So that's the first thing to understand. So what that means is that holders of Alpha, can bridge their Alpha to hAlpha and stake it on Hippius in exactly the same way that you would do on BitTensor. So in the same way that when you hold the Hippius token on BitTensor, the Alpha token, you receive dividends. When you bridge it over to the Hippius chain, you also receive dividends.
The same amount.
However, go on.
Sorry,
the magic is you receive more.
So I'm incentivized to bridge. So I want to put my little Hippius token through the little Stargate and go to your home chain, because over there I make more in terms of my dividends with my Hippius. Yes?
Exactly. Okay. And whilst you can unstake and unbridge and move back again and sell your tokens, that action of saying, hey, look, there's a million Hippius tokens being held, but 800,000 of them are 80% of them are on the Hippius chain. It shows a level of commitment and participation beyond, in the same way that we look at tokens off exchanges in wallets as often as a metric of loyal holders. When we did this in the previous podcast, the guys running the podcast who are holders of Hippius said, so hold on. So you would encourage me to move my holding over to the Hippius chain? I said, well, it's not financial advice, but absolutely, of course. All of my personal Hippius, I would move over to it. You would be mad not to. There's literally no reason not to, other than saying, here is one return, here's that return with a bit more.
How much more? I don't want to say APY. I want to use your word.
You can. I was asked that. It depends. Well, it depends on the usage of the chain. It increases with the usage of the chain, the product. It increases with the usage of the product. So it's essentially, you might look at it as a revenue share, as a shareholder dividend model. The more that Hippius is used, the greater the pot. Of course, then there's a dilution, because the more people that stake, there's the more people that's being shared between. But I'll explain this in the diagram. This is you can make this PDF available. It's definitely available on the Hippius website, on the Hippius Twitter, and anyone wants.
Yeah, I'll put the link in the show notes so people have it.
Yeah. These diagrams that we see are small parts of a greater part, which is also at the end where the whole thing is explained in one go. So the first thing that we do is we make miners. Now, what are miners? Let's go back a little bit to simplify it. Miners are the people supplying the storage on this network. There's 256 slots on each subnet, of which 6 to 10 are validators, and the other, let's just say 250 for argument's sake, are miners. The miners
Mark, we didn't actually explain what Hippius was. I'm sorry. So Hippius is storage, right? So it's like S2 on Amazon or like Dropbox, right? And
it is currently storage. It will be more, but
yes, I know you're going to do more later. But let's
direct competitor to Amazon S3, Cloudflare, R2, Dropbox. It is storage.
And you mine by providing storage, right? That's the basic function of mining.
Storage at scale. Although Dropbox is a consumer product that will be built on top of it, we're going after people storing large amounts of data, developers and enterprise. But it also works beautifully for consumers as a Dropbox or Nextcloud replacement. And what happens is the miners are competing to supply storage. So the more you supply and the faster and more reliable your storage is, the more you earn dividends within the BitTensor network as a miner. So we have an incrementally improving network of storage. However, in order to, so the BitTensor, as I said, the BitTensor subnet has 250 slots. So you might say, oh, well, we've got 250 nodes, shall we say, supplying storage. That would be a little short-sighted if you thought you could run a massive globally productive storage network on just 250
because that's not enough for a massive.
It could be. But the chances are your miners want to run multiple nodes behind there. And I'm not going to get into the technical breakdown of how this works. But the reality is, yes, miners need and want to run more nodes. At the moment, there is a hard cap of 32 nodes per slot, but that is something that can easily be changed through governance, and that just limits growth and also encourages distribution through UID. So there's some technicals I'm going to stay away from here, but the reality is, in order to compete, although you can run a single node, in order to compete, miners need to run multiple nodes. And the top 20 or so miners are running anywhere from 20 to 32 nodes. What we are going to do is require them to lock up hAlpha in order to purchase and expand the amount of nodes that they run. So if you want to expand and compete as a miner, you must take some alpha, which you have either earned previously through mining or purchased on the open market, bridge it across, and lock it up.
Now, this is unusual for BitTensor because usually there is no requirement in any other subnet to stake to mine, right? The miners just show up and they start mining, right? They don't actually have to own the alpha token initially and stake it in order to participate as a miner. You have now, for the first time, introduced this stake to mine model. Yes, you're the first person to do it.
Correct. There were some Ponzi attempts where the entire subnet was based around buy lots of our alpha token, and that's all you have to do. Yeah. So we'll reward the miner with the most alpha. Yeah, we can see the flaw in that. It's not producing anything of any value. This actually came from an idea that I've had in a different subnet, in subnet 85 video, where we need to very accurately rank miners in order to secure B2B contracts off-chain. And what I wanted them to do was essentially provide collateral. And this is where this comes from. Provide collateral, which is very native, which is native to many, many chains. Many chains require collateral in order to validate so that they can slash if you don't behave properly. And what we need for a network, especially a storage-driven network, is reliability for the miners. We need miners to have the term being skin in the game. And they are the most important, because in BitTensor now, a miner isn't some developer sitting in their bedroom behind their keyboard, freeing up some extra gigabytes on their hard disk. These are people in charge of data centers, building teams around supplying. So across many subnets, miners are running companies now. And the purpose of that company is to provision intelligence to these various BitTensor subnetworks. Some of them pivot between different subnetworks. Some of them produce multiple teams for multiple subnetworks. Some focus on a single thing. And so we need to make sure that they are committed, and we want to work with them. And a good subnet knows their miners. A good subnet has groups with their miners where the miners say, hey guys, this is, we would like you maybe to change this, or have you considered this? Can we test your code? It's a relationship. If you don't have a relationship with your miners, I would say you're slightly impeded in terms of advancing as a subnet, because although you've distributed this part of your workflow, they essentially are your providers, your suppliers in a traditional business model. They're your suppliers. They're just not in-house anymore.
Yes. Okay.
So we want them to lock up essentially the more that storage they provide, the more hAlpha they have to,
which creates demand for hAlpha. So
creates demand. Yeah, exactly. It creates demand for hAlpha, just a simple demand for hAlpha. Beyond, the main representation of value to alpha token that most subnets do, and the only Alphanomics that existed previous to this, are burning and recycling, which is where subnets are saying, hey, whatever money I make from my subnet, I'm going to set on fire. Therefore, less supply.
I'm going to buy my own alpha token.
Buy back the alpha token,
and then I'm going to burn them.
Yeah,
right. As you pointed out, why would you do that?
Well, you would do it to reduce supply, therefore increase. If you outpace inflation of that token, you essentially add value to the token due to scarcity. The reality, though, is that the amount that you have to burn to outpace both inflation and speculative back and forth, so people that are trading just because they think the price will go up, is quite large and you're always sort of chasing your tail, because the more you do this, the more the value goes up, the more, it is a kind of a tail chaser. And for me as a business model, can you imagine Apple if they turn around and said, "Oh, we've made $1 billion. Let's not invest it in marketing or product development or anything like that. Let's just set it on fire." or, let's just buy our own shares and set those on fire, which, who does that benefit? The other shareholders. But does that benefit the Apple products? No.
Yeah, clearly
So
not.
for me, especially as, all of these subnets are early stage startups. We are all early stage startups. None of us are spending as much as we should on marketing and product placement and development. We're limited in our development by our emissions and what we can spend. And even that is a touchy subject, because you can't just spend all of your emissions, because if you spend all your emissions, you're essentially dumping your token and reducing the price. This is the beauty of BitTensor. Even as founders, you have to be responsible with your runway, because the amount of runway that you spend versus hold directly affects what you receive. So if you're an irresponsible spender as a founder, the network will punish you.
Yes.
Immediately.
Okay.
So we have a demand. We've created a demand for our alpha, and we've created that demand from the people using the net, or the participants using the network currently the most, the miners.
Now, if I'm a miner and I need to buy, I need to use hAlpha to buy more capacity so I can mine more. What is the price of that hAlpha?
The price of the alpha, or hAlpha, is the same as whatever it is on the open market. And the reality is, as a miner, you are making more than it is costing you to mine.
I actually
Otherwise, you're not mining.
Sorry, I asked the question wrong. So if I have to buy more node capacity, what does the price of the node variable, or is that fixed?
What we're going to do with the price of node is, we are, as a testament to BitTensor, we will use dynamic pricing in the same way that subnet and registration values within BitTensor are dynamic. You essentially have a decay. You have you can set a base price, an initial price, and the price decays over time. As someone purchases, it goes up by a given amount, usually doubles, starts to decay again, down. So you end up with a dynamic pricing where the price reflects demand directly. And that's what we're going to do.
Got it. Okay.
However, in order to lock up this alpha, and this hAlpha, in order for them to purchase these nodes, they first have to bridge to hAlpha. So they're not locking up alpha, they're locking up hAlpha, which, of course, ergo is the same thing. And they then have to lock up that hAlpha, and that hAlpha does not earn them rewards. They
give up the rewards.
Forfeit the dividends on their hAlpha. The thinking behind this is they are making significantly more from mining than they would be from dividends. I'm not going to talk about the APY. There is a nice APY on subnet tokens at the moment, especially if they're quite early in their lifetimes. However,
so let me just explain this for some of the people who might not understand this. So if you hold BitTensor alpha tokens back on the main BitTensor chain, you, depending on the market cap of the subnet, you're making right now quite a bit in APY. You just hold the token, and more of that token flows in your wallet every day. It's kind of magical, and some of these things are making like 80% now. APY, right, or dividends.
It's magical. Not financial advice.
but there's also a flip side to that, in that there's also a lot of emissions being poured into the subnet's liquidity pools on the BitTensor chain, which is driving the price down. So you've kind of got these two things happening at the same time, and they more or less even out over time, I think is the idea.
It's pre-first halvening. Yeah. We can compare it to Bitcoin. There were a lot of Bitcoin being made at the beginning, and anyone could scoop them up, and there were loads of them flying around. But if you really believe something will work in the long run, being involved early and going through the price swings, value swings, and accumulating lots of these tokens ended up being profitable. Of course, if the go on.
Yeah, sorry, Mark. I apologize. Continue.
Of course, if the product ecosystem network doesn't work, it is a downward trend, and all of these subnet alpha tokens were fair launch, no pre-mine, started at 0 and are going up to 21 million. They have a slightly, I'm not going to go over the halvening cycle of subnet tokens. It mirrors Bitcoin. So as I said, so they are inflationary, but at the same time, if demand and usage can outweigh that inflation, then it's no longer inflationary. There are no deflationary subnet tokens, but there are a couple of the close.
So let me just tie this back to what. Yeah, I just want to tie the point back to what you were saying earlier. So you were saying that the miners, when they lock their hAlpha token up in order to mine, to buy, to mine, they are no longer receiving that magical 80%. They don't get that anymore. That goes somewhere else.
He said a number.
I don't know.
So now you said a number. We're just going to use that number as an example.
Go ahead.
80%. It changes, but we're going to say for now that you are earning 80%. If you stake or if you own Alpha tokens, you are earning 80% APY on that token. When you bridge and lock as a miner, you lose that 80%. The reality is, if you had for example, 100 Alpha over a year, you would have earned 80 in APY. The reality is, as a miner, you might be earning 500, 600. You're earning exponentially more as a miner because you're providing a service. And miners currently receive 41% of the emissions of a subnet, a value that will be variable soon. Subnet owners will be able to set this themselves. It's shared between the owner, the miners, and the validators. But regardless, what I want the non-mining user to understand is mining is profitable. If you do it well, because you don't mine if it's not profitable. It's a natural market dynamic. Miners mine because they're making money. There used to be the motto within BitTensor, which was, well, I'll say it how I would say it to my son, who's only 3, fluff the miners. The reason people used to say that was, don't worry, the miners are being taken care of. They're looking after themselves. Otherwise, they wouldn't be mining. If mining is not profitable at all, then your subnet doesn't get mined, quite simply. So miners are making profit, and therefore they can essentially afford to lock up Alpha because it's giving them access to greater earning potential. However, that hAlpha that they lock up, they may lock it up and forfeit the dividends, but it doesn't mean the dividends go away. As we said earlier, all Alpha/hAlpha is making dividends. It's just part of the mechanics of BitTensor because it's a staked derivative of Tau. So it's making dividends. So what are we doing with those dividends? Simply, we put them into a dividend pool and we share them with all other hAlpha holders. Not the Alpha holders. We don't bridge it back to BitTensor and then distribute it manually to everyone that's holding. We're not that nice. No. But if you've bridged over your Alpha over to hAlpha and you're staking on the Hippius chain, you will get it.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned.
I can give you the most basic example.
This is a bit confusing, so let me just clarify something here. So I'm not a miner. I'm just a guy, and I've been motivated, because I make greater rewards to take my Hippius subnet 75 Alpha tokens from the main BitTensor chain, move them over to hAlpha over on the Hippius chain. Now I'm there, and so I'm already making more money. But if I then also, on top of that, stake that hAlpha, I now get a cut of the dividend pool on top of that. Is that correct?
Correct. So I'll give the example from birth. Let's say this is being launched, but no one is using it. And one miner comes over and locks up 100 hAlpha so they can mine better. They were receiving 80% APY. They no longer are. Along comes Mark, also with 100 Alpha that he bridges over to hAlpha, and you're not a miner. You stake your 100 hAlpha on Hippius. You would have been receiving 80% on the BitTensor chain, but on the Hippius chain for your 100, you're going to receive your 80% plus the 80% for the miner, so that he's sacrificed because that's what's in the dividend pool. So there you are receiving 160%. Hold on a minute. I'm a miner. I've just lost my 80%. Can I also just bridge over some more of my hAlpha that I've earned, or more of my Alpha, and I will now, instead of your, I'm not going to do the maths on this, but let's say Mark is has got 100, and I bridge over another 100 that's not for locking up. So now we've got 200 in the dividend pool. So now both of you are sharing that minus 80%. So now you would each be making 120% instead of 160%, because the miner can actually make back some of their lost dividends if they want to by bridging over some more of their hAlpha or their alpha. And because miners generally believe if you're doing a good job, your miners will hold your token. They need to sell what they are, what they need to pay costs. And of course, they're running a business. They need to take profits and pay staff. But as with Bitcoin, when people mine in bear markets almost at a loss because they believe in the future valuation, a lot of Bitcoin mining companies want to hoard Bitcoin. That's what they want. They want a massive Bitcoin treasury because they truly believe in Bitcoin. I believe parasitical mining is one of the most harmful things to an ecosystem where people are just mining a token that they don't care about. They just say, I don't know, I'm just going to mine and sell everything immediately. And it happens within BitTensor. If you have what we would term a shitnet, a subnet that does nothing of any value, but miners realize they can extract. They extract and sell. The sell pressure is great. The price goes down. Eventually, it's not profitable anymore to mine. They leave and you have a stagnating shitnet. But of course, if miners believe in the future valuation of your token, they also want to accumulate because they believe it'll be worth 3 or 4 times more in the future. And of course, if they want to maximize the return on their investment and reap back some of their lost dividends that are in the pool, then they're going to bridge over more alpha themselves. So what we've done here is we have incentivized the holding of alpha and also made it more profitable for both the miners and the investors, or should we say community, whatever you want to call them, to hold and stake their hAlpha on Hippius.
You've provided many reasons to own hAlpha for Hippius, both as a miner and just as a regular person. But there's one last party trick you have.
Yeah. Well, this is of course based on if you believe that the Hippius chain is growing and the usage is growing. That's what that's based on. As with anything, any business goes up and up and up, and then sometimes you reach a little bit of a plateau, and then you go up again, or you go, no, this is business growth. So this is a fluid movement where people can decide when enough is enough. So what about revenue and distributing revenue? This is all being derived at the moment from the provision of service to the network, which is great. So we're making money from the provision of service. But Hippius has product revenue. It's low at the moment. We're an early stage startup, and we're not. You have to pay for Hippius credits, but the curve, all of these exponential growth curves, we're all the way right down here at the very bottom left-hand corner at the moment. Trust me.
And by the way, I just signed up for Hippius today because I wanted to see this. And dude, the user interface is awesome. Like it looks
Hippius
great.
User base has doubled in the last 48 hours. Yeah. I was told that this morning by Dubs, but then I said, but that doubled going. No, it didn't go from 1 to 2. It was a joke. We're talking 3 figures to 4 figures. But we've been very, very tentative. A lot of people within BitTensor say, why is they don't have more marketing on Twitter? Why are you not screaming about this? It's a storage product. You can't mess up. It needs to work. And it needs to work well, and you need to have proven use cases before you go. And so, of course, the first public product works in a way like a Dropbox replacement, but we are still making some optimizations to our S3 endpoints, creating essentially something called S4, which is created in collaboration with Const and his subnet. And we're now actually pushing beyond functionality from that. What you would get from S3. We're working with these other subnets. But anyway, this is not I can do another one about Hippius, and I'm only showing this window. So if you go to hippius.com, you can read everything you need to know about Hippius, the product, how it's hundreds, if not thousands of times cheaper than the centralized competitors. I'll leave that to you. This is about understanding Alphanomics.
Yes. Revenue comes in.
Yeah, revenue comes in. Hippius product revenue, be it fiat or crypto, flows through the bridge and is converted to hAlpha. And
converted means the revenue is used to buy hAlpha?
Yes. All crypto revenue, anything bought with Tau USDC, that's easy. Automatic 1-1 conversion straight into hAlpha. You spent $100 on credits with USDC or Tau, and that is immediately converted into hAlpha at the price at the moment that you do it. Buy in fiat, anyone that's running these businesses knows it's slightly more complicated. You pay with Stripe. We wait for Stripe to clear it. We wait for Stripe to process any callbacks, fraud, or anything like that. Then it gets sent into a bank account. Then it's in the bank account. Then it has to be bought on chain. And then it has to be converted into hAlpha, taking away processing fees, Stripe fees, chargeback fees, and all of those. But it still happens. It's impossible to do that on-chain at the moment. When Stripe have full on-chain integration in the future, and it will come, we will be able to. But it happens. We actually have a way of dealing with this. Well, the easiest way is, of course, it is locked until it's consumed. So this is the important part to remember.
The hAlpha is locked until it's consumed.
Because
what you've done is you've taken fiat, if you've taken fiat or Tau, and under the hood you've bought hAlpha, but as you're about to say, those become credits in the system. So please continue. I just want to make
the easiest way to sum this up that people understand is the Starbucks loyalty card business model.
Yes.
Credit your Starbucks card for coffee, buy your $150 worth of coffee at the beginning of the month, but use it throughout the month. So it is all those that Starbucks coffee credit is locked until you actually drink the coffee. Because in Hippius, your storage usage is measured in credits. You have plans that supply you a number of credits per month that you can recharge. You can add additional if you want to, but essentially you are buying credits or recharging your credits at the beginning of the month, using those credits throughout the month. And so
is one hAlpha equal to one credit in your system? Or they sort of, does that move around?
Yes, one hAlpha is equal to a credit. I think it's that's wrong.
No, it's denominated in dollars. Yeah, okay.
It can be changed. These can be changed through governance. So I try not to put a focus on this. I would say that when you're buying a plan, you are buying a plan for a certain amount of usage in a way that you would understand. I need 400. This is storage. I want 400 gigabytes of storage. Okay. Yep. In order to facilitate 400 gigabytes of storage, you need this plan, which is going to give you this amount of credits. And then depending on how you use that storage, whether you're using egress, I'm going to stay out of the technical side of it. These are all variables because it's on chain and it can be immutably set. I believe it's $1 a credit at the moment rather than one alpha is equal to, because the alpha price fluctuates. But
so it's denominated. Okay, got it. So I buy $100 worth of storage, and let's say you charge me $10 a month. Under the hood, that $100 is converted into hAlpha, and it just sits there until a month passes. In which case, you gobble up $10 worth of it, and that goes somewhere else, right? But exactly. while I'm not using it, and it's just sort of in my account, that hAlpha is sort of bricked. It's not moving anywhere.
When you buy storage, you're not buying hAlpha. You as a consumer, when you're there and you pay your Dropbox subscription, we're not giving you hAlpha. You're not buying hAlpha.
Yes, I understand that because I saw you. Yeah, I see credits. This is all like under the hood accounting.
Yes, the credits in that way is separated from the token, although it's tied behind the scenes. We're not selling you tokens. We're not selling you our hAlpha token in order to power your storage. So if you buy $10 worth of storage and the token price doubles, due to the market dynamics of that token, you don't end up with $20 storage. You've still got $10 of storage.
Okay, so it's not exactly credit. So I was a little bit wrong when I said that.
Well, because we don't want the end user to be tied to the infrastructure that runs behind it and may have it seem like a crypto product.
Totally agree with it. Yeah, no, you've done absolutely the right thing. Yeah, as I said, the front end is beautiful. It looks, it's consumer ready. And if you don't know anything about crypto and you don't care, you don't care. And you don't know, and you're never made to, required to understand.
You are when it comes to things like referrals and affiliate schemes. Then you are start to forced to be educated a little bit more. But as a standard consumer or a developer who just wants to sign up and have an S3 bucket replacement, you don't have to know. It works as a straight drop in for S3. So what happens is all of the revenue funds flow into hAlpha and most importantly are locked until consumed by the customer. And if you understood the previous part about the mining, I think you can understand that if they are locked until they are consumed, their dividends flow into the dividend pool. The dividend pool is what the miner lockup dividends flowed into, and now the revenue lockup dividends. So if Hippius is making 100K US dollars in a month, whatever the amount of hAlpha tokens that 100K would have bought in that month or at the time of purchase, that amount of hAlpha is locked, and its dividends are not flowing anywhere other than into the dividend pool to reward those that are staking within the Hippius ecosystem.
Wow. So if I'm just like a regular person and I move my hAlpha, or I move my alpha over to hAlpha, and the business, the Hippius business starts doing really well, and I stake my hAlpha, the better the business does, the more I make. Straight
Correct.
up.
It's
Assuming
literally a dividend share model, like in a way, for anyone that is involved with your token.
Wow. And then, you have multiple things here creating demand for the hAlpha token, and incentivizing the locking up thereof. And the better the business does, like this should drive value into the hAlpha token. I mean, not financial advice, but
Correct.
but all the energy is sort of like, the way the energy flows in this thing. It is just compacting value into the alpha.
Because the reality is that 90% of the holders of your alpha token in BitTensor in all subnets are retail investors. But they may be retail investors, so experienced retail investors such as yourself and us. So I don't know at what point we consider ourselves an institution, but and they need to be incentivized. You are. You are now an institutional investor. There you go. So there are institutional and retail investors, but they are investors, and so you can't just ignore them and say, my product goes up, and we're making something amazing. They will come, because you are competing against 128 other businesses who are all trying to make more dynamic business models. Now you can't just turn it into a Ponzi flywheel and say, well, because that runs out eventually. So you need to be able to create a mechanism that fairly but dynamically rewards the participants that matter within an ecosystem. And that's what BitTensor does. It's an incentive mechanism. I'm incentivizing you to hold the token. I'm incentivizing the miners to perform an action. I'm incentivizing the holders to perform an action. As they asked me in the previous podcast, should we move our Hippius Alpha token over to hAlpha? I'm like, do I need to tell you? I believe I've created a mechanism that makes it very clear whether you should or not. Yes, you are incentivized to do so. Just worth what this slide does is just show that revenue is locked until consumption, and that flows into the dividend pool. And then the arrow behind it, once it has been consumed, it is then distributed to the various channels that are defined by governance. This is very fluid. This is my part of let's not set the revenue on fire. Let's send it to the places where it's needed most. Currently, the fixed and existing channels are referrals and affiliates, which in functionality are the same thing, but the rates can be varied. And I'll talk a little bit later about why I see the referral and affiliate model as slightly different. Treasury, which people, I hate that term. I was reluctant to put it in there because people are like, oh, treasury, that's the founders enriching themselves. No, it's not. It's bounties to build applications on Hippius.
That's engineering. It's marketing and engineering. That's what you got up on that slide right there.
It's marketing, it's engineering, it's product development. It's all the things that a company needs because it's governance driven, the community and the participants can have a say in. Who are those people? Those that hold hAlpha. Now, we're not necessarily, there may be nuanced governance. So if we have a mining decision, we may only make it the decision available to those that have miner lockup hAlpha. So we're not going to say that, hey, all retail, you decide what's best for these miners, even though you understand nothing about the decision that's being proposed. But the same thing can happen with, you can have people with the most referrals and affiliates decide what's happening with referrals and affiliates, et cetera, et cetera. So you can have very fluid governance to decide where things go, which is why I've got a more in there, because other channels can come from this. We'll discuss this more at a later hash rate when we're discussing with charts and figures the massive exponential revenue growth of Hippius.
Yeah, I got to
That's
see.
my next visit.
Yeah, no, without a doubt, I want to do another one of these on Hippius down the road a little bit. And thank you for doing it just on the Alphanomics here. But I think
Okay.
I think you're right. I think nobody's really cracked, the correct design for an alpha token and how it should relate to the business of the subnet. And my God, this is by far the best attempt I've seen. So we don't know yet whether this works, but it sure looks amazing on paper. It looks like it's going to work.
It's happening. I mean, this has been in the works for quite some time. As I said previously, I was discussing this and sort of dropping hints as far back as the first BitTensor conference that we had in Austin, and then was in Austin. Were we in Austin? We were in Austin at that BitTensor conference, I believe so. Yes, and then also in Paris at Proof of Talk. And on stage, I kept saying I'm really looking forward to how teams come up with these alpha-driven economical tokenomics, alphanomics models. And I've seen some teams touch on small elements of this, but none of them have really, I think, put it all together and started shouting from the rooftops. So this is, I'm very pleased that yourself has called this a template. Other people have said, this is groundbreaking. Other subnets should be doing this. Every subnet needs to adapt this to how their model works. As always with BitTensor, one person's incentive mechanism is not another's, but we should be standing on the shoulders of those before us and saying, oh, that's a good idea. I can do that better. Or I can do that in a way that works best for the participants of my chain. This last slide is really just a summing up of that, which says the Hippius chain is forcing miners to lock alpha, hAlpha, revenue to lock hAlpha. All of that is flowing into the dividend pool, which is flowing through to your hAlpha stakers. I think that's a summing up of that. Now, what I did on the next slide is then step back and do an overview of the whole thing. That's the whole model. That's the one that's probably too complicated to explain to people, but it's basically everything we've spoken about. Here you have a representation of your standard BitTensor Hippius Alpha owner who is receiving native BitTensor dividends and a typo. Oh my God, second presentation in and I've spotted a typo. Someone will be shot. This is a representation of your bridge. So both your standard BitTensor Hippius holders, miners, and revenue all flow into the bridge, which facilitates the locking of alpha for revenue miners, flows into dividend pool to the stakers, and the revenue flows to governance. So that's the whole thing all in one go, if you just want to see that schema.
Fantastic.
Before I move on, do you have any questions?
No. I'm still blown away. This is just fantastic work, Mog. Thank you.
I'm only sharing one screen here, which makes this one harder. But there is a site, not just hippius.com, but there is a site called HipStats. HipStats is the Hippius Explorer. I will say that these alphanomics are not completely live yet because they are missing one crucial element, the bridge. The bridge is still waiting, as I said at the beginning of this call, for the inclusion of a new palette into the BitTensor core protocol, which is being pushed through at the moment, which will allow this to be done natively. And therefore, all of this will be traceable on chain. You will see how much miners are locking up. I mean, on HipStats, you can already see the amount of storage provided, the amount of storage being used, all the miners, the amount of nodes they have, all of your files, where everything is stored. When I say all of your files, the hashes for your files. Anyone can't just go on and go, oh, look, there's Mark. Here are his invoices. And it's the Hippius chain is encrypted. I should, all of your data is, of course, encrypted. The miners aren't sitting there going through your data and your files and your family photos. But everything is on-chain and immutable and verifiable, and it will continue to be. So everything that we've spoken here is not just us saying it and saying, trust us, it will all be there. So that's the verified on-chain part. Some upcoming developments. This actually allows us to do a hell of a lot more. We touched on it earlier when we were trying to explain the value of locking up. We don't yet have slashing, but we will bring in slashing. It's inevitable, and you will be able to track miner performance and the ability to regulate it via on-chain governance and regulate all various different elements of.
Yeah, and slashing for those who don't know, because there's going to be some people watching who don't know this. So slashing is when you stake your hAlpha tokens as a miner, if you fuck up, if your machines stop working or whatever, or they're too slow, then basically the Hippius subnet can come in and go, you know what, you fucked up. We're going to take some of the staked hAlpha that you put up there, and we're just going to steal it from you because you deserve to be fined. So, and that's very common in crypto, by the way. So this is not like a weird.
The most asked question about Hippius when people learn it's a storage network is how many copies of my files do you have? That's a variable. The variable is currently 5. There are 5 copies of your files spread between families. Now, we call a family, the patriarch of a family is the node that has all the subnodes. So we wouldn't say, oh, we've got one node with all these subnodes and we've given it to 5 of his. You wouldn't do that. It's split between 5 patriarchal family heads, so 250 out of the 250. If one of those goes offline, then it's redistributed instantly. However, we're not that pleased by that. If you've got a data center that's got 5 petabytes of data and they suddenly disappear from your network, you now need to quickly rebalance and redistribute those 5 petabytes. Thanks, guys. We will be taking a fine for that from the collateral that you put up.
Yes.
There you go. So they will be slashing. And of course, what do we do with that? Well, we'd like the chain to decide. Governance is a funny thing. I don't think that governance that says, you voted for it, therefore it is exacted into law instantly always works, because it can be very, very biased. So as I touched on, targeted governance so that the right people are being asked, and targeted resolution, shall we say. So depending on what is being proposed and how it's being proposed and how it's executed, it needs to be flexible and fluid, and it needs to be adaptable. So let's see where we go with that. I will apply the same love that I have given to Alphanomics into governance. Haven't thought up a keyword for that yet. We'll touch a little bit on the roadmap for Hippius itself. Obviously increasing usage. But I spoke about affiliates and referrals. One of the easiest marketing flywheels for any network is tell your friends about it and you can profit. Hippius has lifetime referrals, affiliates. So in your console, you have a little link, and you would earn those referrals in hAlpha. Of course, they're coming from the locked revenue. If you refer a friend and the friend spends buys 100 Hippius credits, or $100, you receive what they use. So it's not, they just spent $100, but once they've used that $100, it then trickles down as the revenue is unlocked. And part of that trickles down to 10 or 15% to you, Mark. Thank you for sending them to us. Now that's always great. Many of us have many content creators use affiliate links and referral links to build sustainable business support. But what you can also do, because this is a storage product, let's say I build the example I've been using recently is a WordPress plugin. I know that's quite nuanced, but those who know a bit about my history know that I was a WordPress developer for quite a long time, but I could also use it. The example as, let's say you like the app that we built, our Dropbox equivalent, but you want to build one just for photos. You want to call it marksphotolibrary.com. And you want to sell it as a competitor to what we're doing, or as a product, as a competitor to Google Photos or whatever. You want to build a product and you want to store on Hippius because it's cheaper than S3. You're building a product for users to store their photos, and they need to be stored in the cloud, and you've made a choice to use Hippius as your storage provider. Your product can be free. You don't have to charge for a product. You can if you want. That's you. That's your business model. You can charge for your product or not charge for your product, however you want. But your customers will need to pay for storage. Now, either you could charge them a subscription model yourself and purchase that storage, or you could say, hey, clients, I'm going to charge you $9.99 a month, and us as a company, we will provision the storage and we'll pay Hippius. So you're basically building a subscription model business. It's up to you. But what you could also do, which does happen many, many, many times in more to the developers. So I might use a WordPress plugin or use a technical product that is free, but I have to sign up and connect my Amazon account, my S3 account, my storage account, basically. So I might use a WordPress storage plugin that replaces the WordPress media library with Dropbox, S3, Google Cloud, whatever. I plug in my API key, but I need to pay for that storage, right? So that's so the people develop a free plugin. Sometimes they charge for it, but the customer pays for the storage they use. So if you were to develop an app that required the users to have storage and use storage and pay for storage, you can hard code your affiliate link into that. So when they go and purchase storage through your app, the affiliate revenue flows to you. So I got in touch with my old development team, who I'd been missing. I hadn't seen them for a couple of years, and said, "Hey guys, you guys are WordPress experts. Go out and build a plugin." WordPress is a content management system that powers about 80% of the internet, the most used CMS at the moment. And most people run WordPress on a 2-bit hosting from DigitalOcean, GoDaddy, wherever you get your hosting from. And they store the media files on there. And for mum and dad shop blog, that's fine. But if you have an engine parts company with 10,000 products and you've got a CAD drawing and 3D model of each one, and so suddenly you've got 700 gigabytes of data, suddenly your GoDaddy account doesn't support that anymore. You need to offload that storage somewhere else for it to be more efficient. Mostly, if you look in the WordPress plugins directory and you say media storage uploader, or you just type media storage, or go search in Google, how do I store more? You'll end up with plugins that promote using S3, Google R2, Cloudflare R2, and Google Cloud and Dropbox. They're the ones where people understand and can offload their media to. Well, it's just being pushed through now. There will be a Hippius WordPress plugin, completely free, built by this development team.
That's your marketing. My God, because people don't realize how much of the internet, even now, is like, as you said, is 80% of the internet is served up by WordPress. And that's still true even today, which is crazy.
We are recording this on, you're recording this on Riverside. Riverside is a content streaming and podcasting platform. This conversation that we're having is being uploaded somewhere. I can assure you Riverside are not running servers in the basement of their building. Yeah. They are using S3 or R2. Yeah. They are using storage in order to store this data, reliable storage, and they are paying a fortune for it because we've been talking for over an hour and this is video.
Yes, no, it's crazy. And you can provide insane cost savings versus these other people, right? I think I've even heard you. What you tell me? Like, how much cost?
Well, if you go to hippius.com, I'm not going to switch what I'm sharing. There is a storage calculator. So you go to the pricing page of hippius.com. It starts as the amount of storage goes up to huge amounts, it goes down. But on basic storage, so for me to replace Dropbox, it was a 4,000 times saving. For me to replace Dropbox and give double the I think my Dropbox is about 240 gig that I'm actually using. So if it's 250 gig was a 4,000 times saving. When I went up saying, okay, you know what, let's go to a terabyte, it was a 2,000 times saving. Once you get up to serious enterprise sort of scale, for us to replace Talstats storage is about, Talstats is a BitTensor blockchain explorer that we run. I think it was about a 400 times saving.
So you're paying 1/400th, just to be very clear, right? Or in the previous examples, 1/2000th or 1/4000th.
Correct.
Holy crap. That is insane.
You're spending something like $400 a month instead of $13,000 a month.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I remember Vinny Lingham talking about Filecoin, and I was blown away that it was 1/10. This is like orders of magnitude better than that. That's crazy.
I don't want to, I can cite the competitors outside of BitTensor because I have always followed decentralized storage at the very beginning. It was one of my earliest crypto-related investments. You had Storage, the other one. Yep. And I think Storage is fantastic. I still follow them. And these were the days where we were providing the spare capacity on our hard disk in order to receive rewards. But none of them have quite cracked the market. I'm not going to go into a deep dive as to why I think why. But as a developer, no one in BitTensor is saying, oh, yeah, you should be using Filecoin. And we want to, we love to support the decentralized models that echo what it is that we're doing. But there are no BitTensor developers using Filecoin for their subnets.
No.
There are BitTensor subnets integrating Hippius because not only is it cheaper, but it supports the ideologies that they require, and it's not any more complicated to use than S3. It works in exactly the same way.
And ultimately, we all own Tau. So we're part of a Tau Keiretsu. So we all benefit when we all use each other's stuff, which is amazing.
The one benefit with subnets is it provides a closed sort of initial testing. You've got your alpha testing, your beta testing, and then let's deploy within BitTensor, because these guys are harsh critics, and it's not like they're using it lightly. They're using it at scale and at volume, and so you can really battle test it before, which is why we as a company, we're not into our hype-driven marketing. We're not out there paying to try and get the first 10,000 consumers using the consumer app until we're 100% battle tested at enterprise first.
Yeah.
However, and this is supposed to be the last slide, and we just left this in there, and we weren't going to mention it, and we thought we'd just leave it there and see if people are reading the screen or not. VMs, virtual machines. We know that there are subnets out there. There is a top subnet out there that provides GPU, and fantastic, they're doing a great job. Virtual machines, however, basic web servers. I need to make a WordPress site. I need to do something that isn't going to cost me by the hour, but I pay by the month. Web hosting, basically. Hippius is not going to be just about storage. From the very, very beginning, we knew that you can run databases. You can host of course you can host your email on the storage, but you can run websites off it. Miners will be able to provide virtual machines. So at that point, we're no longer going after just the storage market, but we're going after the entire cloud compute and hosting market.
Wow.
And that will be coming.
Amazing. Completely amazing. So thank you, Mark. I think we've stolen enough of your time for one evening, and you've been very gracious with it. So thank you. And you jumped on your
anyone paying attention behind will have seen the sun come up and might be able to work out that it's quite early here.
Yeah. No, I seriously thank you, dude. And this has been great. So, okay, everybody. My name is Mark Jeffrey. This has been Hash Rate. We'll see you all next time.